Hi everybody, welcome to Tarot and the Star. I am your host, Melody. We will be doing a missing persons ghost box reading on Carolyn Denise Brown. Caroline went missing on July 16th, 1985 from Port St. Lucie, County, Florida. She wears glasses, as what they show as a physical description. She was 27 years old when she went missing. Now, this is a really strange case here. Caroline had her 3 children, Barry, Brandon, and Shakita. And they were last seen at their home on July 14th, 1985. They went missing under suspicious circumstances from the father, the husband of Caroline, James Michael Brown. Now, he was originally missing with the family, but then he came back to Port St. Lucie several weeks after, and the police said that he had told them that he shot Caroline while she slept in their home during the night, and he said that besides her was her child Brandon, and while he was sleeping, he says that he smothered the child to death. Then he buried both of their bodies in Belle Glade, Florida, is what he told them. And then he says that he told investigators that he drove down to Shakita and buried to Georgia along Interstate 95 on July 17th. So he has 2 kids left, from these allegations. And 3 days after Caroline and Brandon were murdered, he says he shot Barry in the head and his daughter in the face, and then disposed of their remains along the highway. I can't even imagine how horrendous the situation would have been for those kids. Now, imagine, the father doing all this to the mother and one of the kids, and then these 2 poor kids have to be with their dad driving on a freeway, and they're wondering if they're next. It's beyond me. Okay, so stay with me on this story. So they charged him with these murders, but then here's the problem. There's no evidence that was ever found. They had him try to show them the location of where they were, but then there was nothing ever found. And then they had a court-appointed psychiatrist diagnose James with paranoid schizophrenia, and he was committed to Florida mental health facility. Okay? He was moved to a halfway house in 1996, and he was released from the program in 1997. Imagine this guy is back out on the streets. Imagine. He admitted to doing all this horrendous stuff to the whole family, but then because he is mentally ill, they don't know whether or not that stuff is true. I mean, most likely it's probably true, right? Because he was gone with them, but there's not really a way, when somebody has a mental illness, it becomes harder to figure out what's reality versus what's fantasy there. So let's get into it and find out what happened here. What happened to Caroline and what happened to the kids? I can't believe that, she looks like such a nice person here. Okay, so we're going to get to it. Spirit guides of Carolyn Denise Brown that went missing on July 16, 1985 from Port St. Lucie, County, Florida. Can you tell us what happened to Caroline? Did her husband kill her in the middle of the night as he claimed? Spirit guides of Carolyn Denise Brown that went missing on July 16th, 1985. We understand that Brandon was sleeping next to you. Caroline, if you're no longer with us, was Brandon killed right beside you, Caroline? Spirit guides of Carolyn Denise Brown. Caroline, they say that your husband, James, was released, in a halfway house, and then he was released from the program in 1997. Do you think that James, your husband, was involved in your murder, if in fact you were murdered? Sorry guys, my speaker went out, battery. I'm going to keep on going, but I'm just going to do it with the ghost box, and we'll still get the clues the same way, but it won't be speaker mode. Okay, so Spirit Guides of Carolyn Denise Brown. Caroline, let me ask you a question. If your husband, James Michael Brown, was involved with this, do you think that James is going to do something like this in the future? Spirit Guides of Carolyn Denise Brown. Caroline, if you're no longer with us, this is awful what happened to you if James is involved with this. I just want to say that. If James was involved with your disappearance or murder, it's awful if this happened to you. Can you tell us, Caroline, do you know if your other two children, Barry and Chiquita, did James get rid of them? Do you know if James was involved in their disappearance or death? Spirit guides of Carolyn Denise Brown. Caroline, they have never found you, and they've never found the children. Can you tell us if James, your husband, was involved? Did he leave the children buried somewhere along the highway? What happened to the children? Where are they? Spirit guides of Carolyn Denise Brown. Caroline, did your husband suffer from schizophrenic episodes? Do you know if he suffered from schizophrenic episodes, Caroline? Spirit guides of Carolyn Denise Brown, are there any last messages that you want to tell your family or authorities about what happened to you or the children? Thank you so much for coming through, Spirit Guides of Carolyn Denise Brown, and or Carolyn Denise Brown if you're no longer with us. Thank you for coming through. We are ending the session now with the Spirit Guides of Carolyn Denise Brown and Carolyn Denise Brown if you are no longer with us. We are saying goodbye to you both. Goodbye now. Thank you. And for those of you still watching Tarot to the Star, that's just, it's beyond horrific. It's beyond horrific. People that have mental illness, that have paranoid schizophrenia, they hear voices or, they see things that are not correct, okay? They are suffering from seeing things, as if they were real, okay? It's hard for them to differentiate between reality and fantasy. So if James had done this crime, as he had mentioned, originally to authorities, and he'd done this crime, it would be hard for him to distinguish, what was real and not real. Paranoid schizophrenia is a really horrible disease. People could think that they're seeing the devil. They could look at a person and then the person's talking to them, and they could think that person's the devil, talking to them. So we don't know what was going on in James's mind. To be fair about the situation, we don't know what was going on in his mind if he did this crime. We have no idea what he was thinking. He could have been thinking that they were plotting against him, as some do think that way. He could have been thinking that they have something to do with the government or, evil, or, because there's different categories that schizophrenics usually think. The main three categories that schizophrenics, that always, what comes to their mind to make them think such delusional things is, you have aliens, that's one. You have government turning against them, the police, anything to do with the government, that's two. And then the other one is religion. They think they're seeing the devil and demons and all that. That's three. Those are the main three that paranoid schizophrenics oftentimes deal with, okay? And this is something I've read on, and this is something personally that I have experienced knowing from a family member that actually suffers from this disease. So I do know that, to be fair, if James did do this crime, he would be out of his mind to not really know what he was doing. He wouldn't be able to differentiate his family from seeing, whatever his mind was seeing at the time. But the horrible part is that they suffered because of this. So if he had done this crime, which, he's claiming that he had done it, and he did do some time for that, he went to the mental hospital. But if he had done this, they suffered from this crime. They had to go through such a horrible ordeal with him. Paranoid schizophrenics are very strong too. When they're not on a psychotic medicine, they could become, 3 to 5 times stronger than a normal person. A paranoid schizophrenic, could easily lift up a couch and throw it, and that's not something they normally would do with normal strength, okay? This is because they're suffering from a psychotic break, So, that's just horrible. The victims that are involved with paranoid schizophrenics, it's horrible that any victims have to go through situations like this and suffer, okay? Because, there's no way of them knowing, like for Carolyn's case, there would be no way of her knowing that her husband, is having a psychotic episode until it's too late, sometimes the family members don't notice these things right away, okay? They'll notice when the person actually has the psychotic break. There'll be signs leading up to it. Paranoid schizophrenics, a lot of times in the beginning, you'll notice that they want to be isolated. They want to be in bed all the time, or they want to be just left alone all the time, and they might be staring off in space, Those are signs. Another sign is that usually when a person becomes, they have this paranoid schizophrenia, it starts at an early age. When they're in their early teens, something traumatic happens to them, which causes a break in the mind. And then later on, they start showing signs of depression when these early symptoms. And then later on, it goes full-blown where they have a psychotic break out of nowhere. They'll have a psychotic break because they're stressed about their job, or they're stressed about their family life, or not having money. Anything can cause a complete psychotic break with somebody that has already had a traumatic event when they were young. And a lot of times you'll notice that the paranoid schizophrenics have that when they're young, when they're early teens, early adult. They'll have traumatic events, and somehow it causes like a little rift, and then later it goes full blown. It goes full blown when nobody is suspecting it. An example of that would be, let's say there's somebody you don't know that's a paranoid schizophrenic, and then they're sitting next to you on a couch, and you two are watching a movie, and you have no idea that they are suffering from schizophrenia. And then all of a sudden, the person lunges a knife at you. You wouldn't know until it's too late, right? Or until, you might catch it in time. Then you can, do something about it. But sometimes it's like that. So if he did this crime to his wife, imagine he killed her when she was asleep, and the child that's next to her smothered, and the other two had to deal with this long, horrible ordeal while the father is in a psychotic break, driving on a freeway, looking, paranoid, looking over his shoulder, looking at things that are not there, and then deciding to get rid of them. And it could be as simple as a child saying, "Dad, where are we going? Can you stop the car, Dad?" And all of a sudden the father looks and thinks that they're the devil. It's a very serious illness. Schizophrenia is a very serious illness that needs and requires medication. Very serious illness. Very hard for a person to come back from. Very few episodes, very few cases where people actually came back from that. Very few. Most people don't come back from being paranoid schizophrenic. They usually have to take medicine for the rest of their life, and see a psychiatrist, and the whole, sorts of things that they have to do. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me with Tarot and the Star and watching this program. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about this particular disease that James is suffering from. I'm hoping that he stayed on the medication when he got out. People that suffer from this need to stay on the medication, and sometimes they get off the medication. So the family members or friends have to make sure that they stick with the medication. Horrible disease, but it's horrible what happened to Caroline more than anything, and she's missing. The kids are missing. So I wanted to cover this case, and hopefully we get some clues from this. Thank you so much for joining, and I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you and goodbye.